In this final video, I'll demonstrate Visual Studio's Azure integration, which Azure is Microsoft's cloud computing platform. If you're not familiar with Azure and you're not familiar with either Google or Amazon's cloud computing offerings, then you might be in for somewhat of a system shock, because the software development world, and in particular how companies are architecting and deploying software systems, has dramatically changed in a very short amount of time. Now, unfortunately, the scope of Azure is so vast that I can't do it justice again in this video. I've actually created a series of 100 videos, actually 101 videos, that are available on Microsoft Virtual Academy that cover virtually every aspect of Azure, but at a basic level, so that if you have no background in it, you'll be able to pick it up pretty quickly. So furthermore, Azure is changing so quickly that books and videos are practically out of date immediately after their release. This is because there's an arms race, I guess you could say, between the major vendors to give potential customers all the possible services that they could ask for, so that they'll architect and build their systems around Azure's platform, Google's platform, Amazon's platform, and so on. Now, in this video, I merely want to show you a few ways in which Microsoft has made it very easy to deploy your application, or even just parts of it, to Azure, and then monitor how it's doing right from inside Visual Studio. And by the way, you need an Azure account already set up before you can follow along with this. And you can usually start out for free. They give you so many free hours to play with. And there's always promotions going on, especially if you have a subscription to MSDN. You'll get some free access every month for having a subscription there. All right, now primarily what you'll do is work with Azure using the Server Explorer. The Server Explorer has a number of different uses on your local computer. So you can see here, let's see if I have something local. Yeah, this is my local desktop, and there are things that I can get to, like event logs, message queues, and other services, right? But this really becomes handy whenever I'm using it in the context of Azure. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and click this Connect to Microsoft Azure subscription. It pops open this sign into your Microsoft account. Let me go ahead and do that real quick. All right, so it took a moment or two to log in and to refresh the Server Explorer. However, you can see that there are a number of services, Azure services, that are listed in a tree-like format. The one that I'm going to focus on in particular are SQL databases. And so here I can see the databases that are available that I've actually created, and even be able to right-click and say, then open this in the SQL Server Object Explorer, so that I can do create tables, look at the data that's in the table, and so on. If I'm using storage, Azure Storage, whether it's tables or blobs or queues, I'd be able to manage them from here. You can see that I have a development environment, a local development environment, that allows me to play around with blobs, queues, and tables. But if this was the live, if I had any set up for the live storage, it would be visible through here. Any virtual machines that I have, I can get to them and manage them from here as well. I don't have any set up. App services, this would include deploying my website out to Azure, and so it's divided up into resource groups, and then the actual the websites that I've actually created. And here I can look at the files, the deployment slots, any web jobs that are running in the background, and so on. And so very handy to get to it from here, from the Server Explorer. Again, the Server Explorer, not exclusive to Azure. It allows you to get out other servers on your private network or even your own machine. However, that is one of the great things about the Server Explorer. You can get to that window from the View menu, Server Explorer right there. The next one that I want to show you is the Cloud Explorer right beneath it here on the View menu. And I already had it kind of open, and you'll need to log in, of course. It's looking for my account right now. And let me go ahead and get rid of the webcam so you can see some things. All right. So now I'm pretty sure that you get this if you install the Azure SDK. You'll be notified of that availability up in your notifications area, but I believe it's an optional install, so you may not see this right away. I'm not entirely sure about that. But essentially, this allows you to get at the resource groups and the resource type views of your Azure resources. And so one of the things that it does is gives you deep links into the Azure portal for management of resources and resource groups. So for example, here I have the LVS app service that I created, which will kind of collect all of the services necessary to create the LVS application in one spot. Now, one of the things that this does for you, it gives you deep links into the Azure portal for the management of resources and resource groups, right? So I can just click this open in portal. They say that the functionality of this window will expand over time so that there will be more options right from here in the Cloud Explorer. You can also look at the properties of the particular item that you're working with, the resource group, the location, which subscription that I'm using here, and so on. So the other place that you will see probably the most benefit from this is if I were to click on, let's see, is it web apps? Yeah, it's web apps. All right, and so in this case you can see that I can open this particular web app, this website hosted in Azure, in the Azure portal, so I can manage it there. I can open the website in a browser. I can attach a debugging session to this website that's been deployed out to Azure, which is very cool. I can also view the streaming logs that are being collected as users interact with my website. Okay, and some other items like downloading a published profile, which is a little XML file that contains all the information we need in order to deploy our application out to Azure. I'll show you that in just a moment. And then if we look at the properties here again, kind of similar information, where it's hosted in the cloud, the East US cloud, URL for that web app and its current status and so on. All right. So right now its functionality is a little bit limited for most of these services. Again, you're just going to get the, hey, here's a deep link into the portal. We'll get you right there. You don't have to log in and go through all the screens to get there. But in some cases, they've already blown out the functionality a little bit and made it a little bit easier to work with. All right, so that's the second way that you can work with Azure. The third way is the publish web functionality of Azure. So here I have an ASP.NET MVC 5.1 or some such application that I've been working on. It's the same one that we talked about in the previous lesson. And say that I want to deploy this out to my Azure web apps account. And so I'm going to right click this, and unfortunately it pops off the screen. And what I want to do is select an option called Publish, and this will open up the Publish Web dialog. And here, let's start back at the very beginning, because I've already got a publishing profile set up, and so that's this option that's already been selected here. Again, this is just an XML file that contains all the deployment information for this website to be deployed out to Azure, including my username and password, which I need to be careful with. Giving somebody else the XML file gives them full access to my Azure account, which I don't want. But you can select a published target. Since we're talking about Azure, we're going to pick this Microsoft Azure App Service, but there are some other options as well, like just deploying out to your own local server. So let's go ahead and click Next, and here we can choose the type of deployment we want to use. Web deployment is the preferred method. It's the easiest in my opinion, but you can also deploy a web package, which is just basically a zipped up version of the website that'll get unzipped once it's deployed out to the server, obviously FTP or file system if it's in a local LAN. Here's the server, the site name, the username, and then a password that again is covered up. All this data being pulled from that published profile XML file that I was talking about earlier. And here I can even validate the connection to make sure that that particular web app is up and running, which it looks like that might be in question here since this is taking a little while. There we go. We're good to go there. If I'm going to deploy any database changes, then I can do that here with selecting a given remote connection string, which I have none set up right now, but I can create them in the Azure interface. I can choose the configuration, whether it's debug or release or some other configuration that I've created. Have some other options about removing files at the destination before I deploy this, and so on. All right, so let's go to the next here. Here, assuming that I've actually used a database, this will see if there's any database changes that need to be or even file changes that need to be deployed. So let's see what it comes up with here. This will give you a list of the things that will actually be sent to the server on this deployment. So you can see there's quite a bit of things that I've added since the last deployment. And so if I hit the publish now, this will actually go about the job of deploying it. You can see that it's going in the background. Publish started here in the lower left-hand corner. Unfortunately, you can't see that very easily. There we go. Publish started. Here we get a green bar and notification of activity going on. And here, once it's successfully deployed, then it will pop up in a web browser so that we can see that this website is in fact up and running. It's taking a little while because now it's having to recompile all that code on the destination server. So the first hit on my website, this hit will go through the compilation step. There's ways to avoid this, I think, certain compilation options. I just always use the defaults, mostly out of laziness. All right, and so there we have it. The application is up and running. Great. All right, so those are 3 tools that allow you to tightly integrate your workflow in Visual Studio with Azure and all of Azure services. And I imagine over time this list of functionality will grow and grow. Okay, so that wraps up this quick series, this quick look at Visual Studio. Hope that it was helpful for you. And you obviously now can deep dive into specific areas that you want to learn more about. All right, so good luck to you. Thank you.